Hi, Dennis Weese. Welcome to our town. We're at City Hall, Abilene, Kansas, America. I have a couple of city commissioners, one of which is Mayor Tim Shafer, Chris Ostermann over there, proprietor of the Engle House. If you haven't been there, you need to go. So, and I'm wearing my cowboy outfit, which means we're here to talk about the great things that are going to happen in Abilene in 2019. So I try to wear this for every one of these interviews. You're the last one. And I'm a little sad because I'll have to wear regular clothes next time. So anyway, we're at City Hall. We're at behind the place where you guys stand between us and the citizenry when we're out there and you're up here.
We sit back here.
You sit here. Where's the escape button? That's what
there
I
isn't
wanted.
one.
There's no escape button. All right. Well, I thought if there was one, I wanted to know where it was. So great things in 2019, Mr. Mayor. Abilene, the queen of the cowtowns, the home of Dwight David Eisenhower, and the most prosperous city of 2,500 that I know of with a bright, bright future. That's my view. What's yours?
2,500.
6,500.
Oh, okay. You confused me there for a minute.
That's okay.
I find that currently in Abilene, we are moving forward on the city commission. When I came on 4 years ago, it seemed that we are always reacting to problems that were in our past. But now 4 years later, we are we're planning on moving forward. We seem to have moved past the reactionary phase and moving into a planning phase. And one of the things that we've been excited about is the 75th anniversary of the
D-Day.
D-Day. And
June 6th.
We're working with Dawn Hammett at the Eisenhower Presidential Library and Museum.
Boyhood home.
I've
learned how to do this.
Okay.
Yeah, well, you have to put that last one on there.
You know, when I came here, it was just the Eisenhower Center.
It's a team effort here.
Yes. So, and Boyhood Home. So we've been working with Dawn, or the city has been working with Dawn, not us in particular, to really showcase our community in that regard. And you feel free to jump in any time. I'll even back up. So
don't do that. We'll lose you on the microphone or something.
Well, when I became city commissioner, it was an eye-opening position because I've never done anything like this, but we are in a right track. A lot of things like facility management, which is why the City Hall is being looked at, kind of escaped in the last several years. So we are moving forward and making it where we can be the best at what we can be. And I think part of that is that we're going to have a new comprehensive plan that will give us some goals and ways to make Abilene a better city than it has been, and a better for the future.
You know, I have the benefit of having traveled all over Kansas as a salesperson, calling on city and county government. I've been in every courthouse in the state of Kansas multiple times, and most of the city administration buildings, if they're separate, as well. So, you know, you brought up this building and some deficiencies. Here's what I think the difference is in Abilene. So those exist everywhere. Almost every old courthouse, every old municipal building is old.
Yes.
And it's not as good as it once was, and probably is not prepared for the future. So this is us in this situation. That's ceteris paribus with the world. All conditions equal. The choice is what we do with it, where we go from here. Correct. Both of you alluded to, we're here working on the future. Well, that's the answer, isn't it? Work on the future, don't worry too much about the past.
I don't think we can live in the past, but that's where it seemed like when I came on the commission, we spent all our time trying to rectify the past. And over the 4 years, we're looking at the future, and it's a whole new paradigm for some of us that have had some experience up here. But it's an exciting time. It's exciting to look forward and trying to create our future as opposed to rectifying history. So, yeah, it's really an exciting time, I think, for the commissioners. I hope it's an exciting time for the citizenry of Abilene. But we all have to have some way to work together to do that. And even though there are, I think, a variety of opinions, about what the future may look like, unless we come together in some sort of format, which our city manager, Austin Gilley, is trying to bring these different voices together. And there's bumps along the road, but that's the way we have to go. Or we will continue to live in the past.
So you've given me lots of material.
Well, that was my intent.
Oh, is it? You've done well.
You and Chris can talk about it.
No, we're not going to fall for that, are we, Chris?
No, we're not.
No, but you did give me some good material because you led with Eisenhower in this, and you're talking about this discussion. So, as a city and differing opinions, we're humans, right? In any humans, if you have more than one, and sometimes even in one, you will have a conflict within yourself about an idea. This is the natural condition. There is never
Absolutely.
Unanimous consent. If it is, you're not trying hard enough to push forward. So, but rather than me look at the camera and tell you what I think, I'd like to use General and President Eisenhower. So you think when he was sitting in North Africa with the French and the British, that there was unanimous consent about what to do?
I've read enough to know that was not the case.
No,
yes.
In fact, the genius of Dwight David Eisenhower was his ability to continue to move forward in the face of multiple opinions and still make the outcome great. I think that's a great thing for us to remember once in a while.
And I think that's important that people understand that your voice is important, even though you may not get your way. We still need to know what that voice is saying, because it can tend to maybe it'll flavor our visions, or maybe it'll change our minds. Who knows? We're just people like everyone, and I think that if a person can't listen and maybe understand what somebody else is saying, and they maybe even be convinced of their opinion, but yelling doesn't typically change my opinion.
Oh, it typically does change people's opinion. It hardens it the other way.
It hardens it, yeah. But yeah, we need those voices. Because we can, it's fairly trite. We're either moving forward or moving back. We're not standing still. I choose to move forward, and there's rocks along the way, and we just have to be able to negotiate those rocks.
So I'm going to send Chris an easy one because we both care about this deeply. She'll understand. Moving forward. So I think one of the most progressive forward things that was done in the past, recent past, was done at the Ingle House when we had the bloggers come in and had a little miniature conference. I don't know if you saw my interview with Julie Roller at the CVB. I labeled that a conference. I asked the question, how many conferences did we have? Then we changed the discussion. We have lots of conferences in Abilene. There was one. That was a blogger conference, and Abilene was the subject, and that was a huge hit. Those people were very impressed with our community and took that word back to not only where they lived, but because they're bloggers, they took it back to the world.
That's correct. And we held the blogger, it was just a meeting, a group of people that love Abilene in tourism, trying to showcase our city. And we met and exchanged ideas. They heard our history, and it was a great way to present Abilene. And I think that's something we don't think enough of, that our history is so rich. Eisenhower is fabulous, but whoever came with the Cowtown, back in the 1880s, 70s, all those people made Abilene and started Abilene. And sometimes we forget about that, but the bloggers were just thrilled that they were there and actually saw all the tourists, museums, everyone coming together and advertising for the city of Abilene.
That was a terrific evening, and it was hugely beneficial for the future economic development of Abilene. And what I guess I'd like to explain that as, I'm very comfortable with the market making choices that end up being good, but the market couldn't choose Abilene until we tell them the market about Abilene. And that's what happened at the Ingle House that night, is we were telling Abilene, the world about Abilene. Putting that message out there, and Tim, you mentioned different groups. If we just each put our messages out there, it doesn't have to be a singular message in today's world. You can have 1,000 messages mixed together. As long as they're attractive, the marketplace will choose which to enrich. And I just don't think there's a city our size anywhere that I have been that has the opportunities, the assets, and the future that Abilene does.
So we have the 5-star district, and then I think our schools and our hospital are excellent. I mean, we have everything we need to move forward. It's just getting that critical mass to move forward, as opposed to getting bogged down in discussions and arguments that we can agree to move forward, although it may be a different direction than I personally wanted. I'm trying to think of the exact quote, but plans are useless, planning is essential.
Yeah.
Eisenhower. So that's what we have to do. We have to constantly be planning, even though the plan may not be the end all, but the planning, constantly shifting to, as long as we're all herded, to use a Cowtown term,
Okay.
herded in the same direction.
Chris, your Ingle House is not your only business experience.
No, I actually worked for the post office for over 30 years, and I was actually, at the end, postmaster of Junction City in Fort Riley. So I have a background in government, and that's probably why our group as city commissioners are so diversified, and Tim alluded to that when we had Trevor become a city commissioner. Everyone has a different vision or background or information that we might not be aware of. And working together as a team and trying to get the right information moving forward. And it's an interesting job. But I'm learning constantly, as everyone else is. So,
I want to comment, because I rarely have two of you in the room at the same time. So I want to be an encourager.
Kind of by design.
Yeah, I know. So otherwise the sunshine might shine on us, right? So, but I want to encourage you in this. Diversity is good for us as citizenry. Diversity in leadership, different ideas is good for us in Abilene. And Abilene affects the entire area. So it's good for us. So are split votes. That's good for us. It means that something is being considered that somebody thought was a wee bridge too far. And that is always a defining characteristic of success. Just before the bridge too far is where the best you can do. So if somebody doesn't vote no, maybe we're not going far enough and fast enough. So I wouldn't be too discouraged by any diversity of opinion, whether it's in the public, us, or whether behind here and you. That just means you're talking about important things.
Right. And anyone that pays attention to this commission anyway knows that split votes do occur.
That's good. I think that's healthy. So let's pin it in. I'm going to glance at the clock. Looks like 6 or 7 minutes left. Specific things. I think city government. I think roads, water, law enforcement. How are we doing?
Well, we're working on a road maintenance plan right now. Historically, it was just kind of from my understanding anyway, it was just kind of happened, you know. But now we're, with our city manager and lawn administrator, are putting together an actual plan how we're going to address our roads. And that also includes, well, the specific plan is about roads, but our infrastructure, our pipes, you know, they're 100 years old, or, you know, I don't know the exact date.
Some are probably.
Yeah, and so there's a constant need to update things. Our water treatment plant is 20 years old, and although that's not nearly as old as this building, the equipment in there is high-tech stuff. We just did a tour there 2 weeks ago, something like that. And it's going to need some attention. So, but those are things that are being planned for in advance,
Right.
as opposed to, uh-oh, it broke,
Sure.
now what do we do?
Right.
Police department, I think our police department's fine. There's not been any controversy that I'm aware of or anything. It's ably led. The patrol officers are very professional. So we did go through 2 years ago. Were you on when we first started doing the cameras?
No.
No. Yeah,
I was
we
not.
kind of went through a little growing pains with video recording. So, but I think that's been implemented and resolved now. So, yeah, that.
Well, you know, as a citizenry, we look to government for the things we can't do ourselves, and some bubble of organization over the top of private enterprise, and roads, bridges, water, sewer, law enforcement, and some administration of those activities, taxes, I guess I didn't really speak to, collection. You know, that is the things that government in our little experiment of America was designed to do. And essentially that's how most citizenry looks at city government or county government or any other government. You pick one of those topics, there's something of interest to that person, or they're not interested.
Right. Sure.
And part of that too is that we want to attract new businesses.
Okay.
And to be able to do
Great.
that, we have to have the roads, the water,
Absolutely.
everything. And our city manager is we're working on making that to happen for people. And it's a positive way to attract people, and we have to have it. We have to have those goods and services ready.
I appreciate
for them.
you saying it that way, Chris. I happen to agree with that. I think that is one of the flags you wave when you're looking at new business, is your infrastructure is ready for you. And we don't know who you are yet, but we're ready for you. Or if we're not completely ready for you, we have demonstrated a history of being willing to adapt quickly enough that we'll be ready for you no matter what. You know, that puts us, it's a competition in towns for business, and that competition's fierce. So you have to put yourself in a position to win. And I would agree with many of the comments you're saying here today. We can see that out there at the other side of the podium. We can see that there's actual planning being done to deal with these issues moving forward. I think that's healthy.
Yeah. And it took a little time and effort to come to this understanding that planning is essential. Like say when I came on, it just seemed like we were always reacting to things, and we didn't have the time nor energy to look past what we're trying to rectify that occurred in the past. But it's been quite a change, and I think a much welcome change, at least from my perspective.
I think we said at a point in time here that we're pretty lucky here in Abilene. Not only the positive things you've said that come from behind this podium, I can represent to you the positive thing in the investor community that are happening in Abilene. We haven't really put a number on it yet. There's several of us that sit in the group and talk about things like this and economic development, but we haven't put a number on past investment in the community, but we did a little pencil work. There's a huge amount of dollars being put in by private business that doesn't appear in the newspaper or on the show or anything else. It just is happening. And we're very fortunate in that regard. While many communities our size across the nation, I lived in New England during the 80s, full of quaint little villages and welfare checks. So it looked good on the outside, rotten on the inside. That's not Abilene. Abilene is healthy and growing, and we have business people who have put money into helping us grow. You know, when we went out with the Economic Development Corp and raised $1.2 million in 6 weeks, that's from people who say, I believe in your community and I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is.
Yep.
That's huge.
It is.
The next, I think, the firm that worked with us, I think the next smallest town was Hutchinson that had done anything like that. Again, we kind of know Abilene is different for a town of 6,500, but maybe internally we should say it to ourselves once in a while.
Some of the things, and I'm just thinking what we offer that towns of 6,500 don't. We have professional theater.
Yes, we do.
And
gunfights in the streets.
And gunfights in the streets.
And nobody ever gets hurt.
They keep coming back.
That's right. We can sure beat Chicago in that regard, can't we?
Right.
So nobody gets hurt here.
So now I have my button says I like Abilene, but I moved here 9 years ago and fell in love with the community. And when I retired, I could have moved anywhere, but chose to stay here.
Well, Chris Ostermann and her husband Scott, I think you testified to us what you think about our community by your investment up at the corner of 14th and Buckeye.
It's the quality of life here. We wanted our children to grow here. We moved here in '93 and this made the decision to stay because we liked the town so much. We wanted our children to grow up and feel comfortable in a community that cares for each other.
Yep.
Anything, we've got 4 or 5 minutes. Any policy stuff that you want to get out to the camera?
Well, let me look at my little sheet here.
That's what those lists are for.
Yeah.
We are right now reviewing facilities, the water, the sewer, as Tim alluded to. And it's an eye-opener. When you see it on paper, there's a big difference when you see it actually, where you're reviewing it and the employees who really care of their jobs, how the facilities are running. And it could be the police department. We took a tour of the city hall, the water department. Now, next week we go to the sewer department. And that's great because how often do you see the sewer department or the water department, how it's run? And I was just enjoyed the water department mainly because I never been through that before. And I'm voting on something that could happen to that water department, and it's great that we were part of that and be able to see it in action.
Eagle Communications bought the franchise for cable television, bought the company, cable television that was running this in 2005. So we have been here since 2005. But I deal with about 60 communities between Kansas, Colorado, and Nebraska like this. I deal with communities on things. Abilene is, again, in the lead on cooperation all of the time. And Lon Schrader. I can call Lon Schrader, he calls me, and he says, got a line laying on the ground, don't know whose it is, but thought I'd call you first. That kind of cooperation is great for business, transparent, open, friendly, right? Well, I can also call Lon Schrader and say, thinking about moving a line over there near the new Eisenhower Upper Elementary School. How do we need to work together on this, Lon? And he'll tell me. Now, here's the gotcha, though, because I understand this really well because I suffer from it myself. And that is, there's a lot in here that's important to make things go. And Lon Schrader's understanding of what's under the streets in Abilene is unbelievable. He can tell you where every pipe is and how much water it carries. And probably tell you where my line is in Kansas Natural Gas too, because I've been in enough utility meetings and seen it happen. That's a fairly safe bet. But for a community, that knowledge has to be captured in GIS system to be useful for the future. And oh, the good news is
we're capturing it in GIS.
You're working on that, right?
You know, one thing that talk about cooperation, we just passed a resolution for a memorandum of understanding with the county.
Right.
And I think that is a major step forward, especially as we develop kind of to the northwest.
Yeah.
It just, for these two entities that are so close, you know, to not work together, but we're now hopefully rectified that situation.
That's terrific. I read this or I hear this and I read it online and I look at that and I see that is probably the giant flag of forward progress, because it is essential for our citizenry to have the faith in government that we want and the hope in our economic future that we need to see intercooperation between the taxing units of government. It is essential for business to know which way your community is going to go.
Right. And I guess, as I've said, we're talking about trying to move forward. I just scratch my head and say, why did we do that? Why hasn't that been done in the past?
Well, so there's 1 minute left. So I got to answer your question. It's because the marketplace is working, Tim. It isn't these people here. It's all of us that are moving forward. And the good news is we seem to be doing it in a coordinated fashion as a result of a common desire to see Abilene prosper. And that, as you well know, whether it's Great Plains Theater, Eagle Communications, or the city of Abilene, there are a lot of people in this town of 6,500, county of 19,000, that care deeply about the future of our children and the future of the people that made this country great. The legacy of Eisenhower to prosper in Cowtown as well. I look at Sarah Wilson at 26 and her investment in Old Town Abilene and her work. That's what's going on in the marketplace. It's a great time to be alive in Abilene.
It is.
All right.
It certainly is.
We're out of time. Thank you, Chris Ostermann. Thank you, Mr. Mayor Tim Shafer. I appreciate you being here today.
Thank you.
I'm Dennis Weese, who work for Eagle Communications, wishing you a great day.